Good afternoon. My name is Shyam, and I would like to welcome you for this special Sunday special feature. And today we have a very special topic that is on organ donation. On behalf of the South Manchester district of Seventh-day Adventist Churches, I would like to welcome all of you, those who are watching on YouTube for this presentation. Before we start, I would like to offer a prayer. Please let us pray. Gracious Father who art in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the experts that we could bring together so that we can learn more about organ donation, so that we can prolong life in the way that is acceptable to your sight. Please give the experts the right words to speak, and may all the audience be benefited through this. May we understand the law around the organ donation. May we understand the experiences of people who have gone through this experience, and may we be able to help each other through this procedure. Be with the organizers and be with each member of the panel. May we bring honor and glory to your name. Forgive our sins and shortcomings, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hello, everyone. Just want to say welcome. My name is Amanda Questel-Lewis. I am a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm part of the Family Ministries team for one of our churches in Manchester. Here we're today having a presentation on organ donation. And it is one that sometimes it might be one of those ones where people might think it's quite emotive, don't know which way to go, but we're here to bring clarity and understanding about organ donation. And it's not something that should be feared, but once understood, people could make the right informed decisions. So I am glad and happy to welcome the panelists. We have a panelists of professionals and those of lived experience as well. So I'm privileged to introduce to you, no particular order, but I just want to introduce them to you. It is Hilaria Asumu, and Hilaria Asumu is the ambassador for blood and organ donation for the NHS. She's also a kidney recipient, and she's also the chair for the WSH, and that means she's chair for the Warriors, Survivors and Heroes of the Black and Minority Ethnic Group Network. Okay, so welcome, Hilaria. We also have Emma Johnson. Welcome, Emma Johnson. Emma is the mother of Max, and Max is a recipient of an organ, which is the heart. And it was through Emma and her perseverance of pushing for the organ donation law introduction of it as we see it now, because it's changed, and Emma will give us some more information about that. So we welcome you, Emma, for being with us today. We also have Dr. Livingston Chisimba, and he is a doctor, he's a consultant chest physician at the Royal Liverpool Hospital in Liverpool, obviously. And he has an extreme good interest in organ donation. Being obviously a consultant in his field, he has had to treat those who've had received lung donations. So he's had his experience in working in his profession from those who's also received lungs as a donation. So we welcome you, Dr. Chisimba, and for your input today. We also have with us Sharon Hallam. Sharon Hallam is a specialist nurse in organ donation, and she will be giving us information and explaining to us probably the processes of what goes on in terms of organ donation, from when, you know, there is a recipient that needs it, and also somebody who has to donate as well, and what the process is going with the families of individuals on both ends. So we welcome you, Sharon, and your expertise in which you will be sharing with us today. So without further ado, just to share and explain how important this theme is, we've got to recognize that as coming from a Christian background, we acknowledge that God he's the creator of all. He created man from the dust of the ground, and he, you know, breathed into his nostrils, and he became a living soul. And we recognize that God is, being the creator of all, he's the one who transforms us. He's the one who is the one who has created us. And with his transforming power, he can do anything and anything to help us. And we as individuals, we need to look after our bodies, because we don't know, in looking after our bodies, in what way we will be of benefit to others. So that's why it's also important for us to recognize that our bodies are also the temple of God. So we got to look after them, because they will always be of benefit for others. Okay, so as I go into the discussion, we're going to have a few presentations, and we're going to start off with a presentation or some bit of background from Dr. Chisimba, who will give us an understanding of organ donation and why do we need to donate organs.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for that. And welcome to all the audience, both within the UK, and I know we've got some audience from outside the UK. So I think it is really very important to understand what the importance of organ donation is. Why do I have to donate my organ? And when will that time come? Are there any laws that are related to this? And I know amongst the panel members here, we've got experts here that are going to talk about some of these aspects. So we've got thousands of people in the UK today who are with organ transplant, and that actually can be saved dramatically, and lives can be improved as a result of organ transplantation. And why do we have to spend time now to talk about it? And why do you have to ask questions about that? It's important that we actually understand what the background is. The simple act of you just joining the donors register can help and make a world difference. And therefore, we all need you to join this group. Let's talk about which particular organs we are talking about here, which area is involved. If you were asked to join the organ donor register, which organ we are talking about, and if you are got a healthy program and you need an organ, which organs so far are possible? So we've got the lungs, we've got the heart, we've got the kidneys, we've got the liver, we've got pancreas, we've got the small bowel. But we also have some tissues, for example, in bone transplant, you can have heart and valves, you can have the corneas, and all these, if given to individuals who are badly suffering from conditions, that can make a huge, huge difference to their quality of life. Let me just talk about the lungs, as we have heard from the introduction. I am a lung specialist, and every day I deal with people who actually are struggling. So got people who I'm sure some of you might be patients, or you might have one or two relatives that suffer from COPD and emphysema. So in this condition, the lungs are badly damaged and someone cannot breathe properly. They suffer from lack of sleep, they can't work, they have very poor quality of life. Most of the time they are in the hospital, and in some cases they need oxygen. And sadly, despite all the treatments, death is inevitable. And so this particular group of people are really desperately in need of lungs. We got other conditions like lung fibrosis. This particularly in children and also in adults, more especially in adults. So in this condition, the lungs are scars, they are scarred, and they can't get enough oxygen into the lungs at all, despite the fact that someone is breathing. And so people struggle, they are sleepless, they got poor exercise tolerance, poor quality of life. Many people, they can't work, and some can't even afford to look at them. And invariably, despite the maximal treatment, this group of patients, death arise. Another condition that your organ might be required for is cystic fibrosis, and this is more is in children, particularly pediatric group. But nowadays, with increased quality of treatment, we got more adults, people reaching the adult life who have cystic fibrosis. And in this group of people, they mostly get a lot of chest infections, exacerbations, and they have similar problems like the problems that I've listed. And the only hope for these people is God and lung transplantation. They don't need either a single or double lung transplantation. Let's talk about the heart. The heart is very important for your life. It's as you know, it's a vital organ which is important to pump blood to the body and the lungs. It distributes oxygen and food to your body, including your brain. It carries all the waste products that are produced in the body, and particularly carbon dioxide to the lungs, so you can take out these. It also carries excess water to the kidneys so that the kidneys can excrete this and you can wee. And when the heart is not able to function, you cannot be able to achieve this kind of functions. So when your heart fails, you find that you got a pump problem. Could be as a result of a muscle, sometimes it's valves. And what happens to you, you will not be able to. And people who do have heart problems, they can't sleep properly. They got swelling of the legs and sometimes the abdomen. They lack energy. They have sometimes irreversible damage, which actually eventually comes, and they might develop what is called end stage damage. And in this group of people, impending death is the outcome, and the very, very poor quality of life, like the people who suffer from lung disease. The heart transplantation and God, and they are just looking someone who can donate this organ. Kidneys, we got part of the panel here, we got people who got experience with either they've received kidneys themselves, and I'm sure you, the audience, you might be one of those. So they are important, as you know, to make sure that they maintain our water balance, take out and it's great. If your kidneys are damaged, you're going to have reduced urine output, or you have no urine whatsoever, and everything accumulates in the body. Your body is swelling, you can't remove most of the wastes, and they accumulate in your body, and you might start getting and collapses. When the toxins that normally the body breaks down, particularly medications and things that accumulate, they cause a lot of damage. These individuals, I tell you, they have very poor quality. And the options for most of these patients is constant medications, dialysis, peritoneal or hemodialysis, but in the end, ending death is the likely outcome. And these individuals, as the other groups that I mentioned, the kidney transplant and God becomes the option, but they need someone to donate. And why is it important to think about organ donation? Why is it very important? You see, as I mentioned before, we do have medical advances, but even with medical advances, it is now possible to use transplanted organs and tissues to enhance the life chances of those suffering from a range of general conditions, such as kidneys, heart, and the rest of the organs that we've talked about. And we've got more people than before now suffer from these conditions. And the UK itself is actually having an upswing of the conditions that I mentioned. They just need some help from someone. So the person in need of an organ today may be a stranger to you, but tomorrow that person could be someone that you know or someone you have. So it's really very important. So please take time to decide whether you want to be an organ donor or record a decision on the NHS organ donor register, which we are going to hear very, very soon. So what's the objective of transplanting your organ, or you receiving the organ, or your family member receiving the organ? Two very important parts. One is to improve survival, and the second part is to improve life. So there are two things. You live, but you need to have a good quality of life as you live. There's no need for you to live such a terrible type of life. So you need to live, but that life should be good quality of life. And this is what organs that you get, or organs that you give to somebody, achieve. And we know very well that survival improves, and there's a lot of studies about survival in all these different organs and tissues. But you see, we have challenges of organ transplantation. There's not enough suitable. And that is particularly, one is unwillingness, other things like people who are actually willing to donate, but they are unsuitable to donate. Then, you know, people suffering from diseases and smoking, blood groups and height, all these kind of situations make organ donation. And of course, as we're going to hear, there's some myths and misconceptions, particularly some religion, traditions, culture, and race, ethnicity, all sorts of things that actually impact on organ donation. There's also an issue which we encounter, particularly in the lung, where what donor recipient needs. Sometimes we go to someone, the donor is short, but the recipient is so tall, and actually the organ can't fit that individual. And so we got a long waiting list, particularly here in the UK, but not just the UK, but the whole world. And we've got people dying while waiting on the waiting list. And why? Because they can't actually get that particular organ that is. And so it is really very important that as you listen to this, you think about organ donation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chisimba, for that sort of introduction and a breakdown as to why we need to donate our organs. And anyone who is listening now, that there is a chat where you can send in any questions that you have. You can just type them in, and hopefully we will be able to read them and pose those questions to the panel. Okay, so we're going to move on over to Hilaria. You're going to give us your experience and also what your involvement is with organ donation.
I'm going to share my screen. Thank you very much, Amanda, for having me on today. So I'm going to share my personal story today with everybody. And then I'm going to go on to talk about organ donation and why it is important. I know Dr. Livingstone has done that already. And then I'm going to talk about why it's needed and who needs them and who can get involved. And finally, an appeal for help from the people listening today, and if they can help us to pass the message on to people outside. So I'm just going to play my video. I had a miscarriage at 22 weeks, which progressed quickly to septicemia and multiple organ failure, which also ensured that my kidneys stopped working. Life after getting a transplant is amazing. Being able to do the things I used to do. I can't put into words what I feel about my donor's family. I cannot thank them enough for giving me this good chance of life. Okay, so that is my story. It's just a brief summary, about 40 seconds of my story. If you go onto the YouTube and to the NHS organ donation website, you'll find the longer version, and please listen to that. It's really happened to me, and today I'm so happy I'm here. I was given the gift of life because a family agreed to organ donation. So what is organ and tissue donation? Organ donation is the act of giving an organ to save or improve the life of someone who needs a transplant. So, you know, people could come onto organ donation through anything happening to them. It could be through sickness. Mine was sudden. It happened, you know, suddenly after a miscarriage. And, you know, I'm here today because of, you know, a family. Tissue donation is when the tissues in the body, cornea, skin, bone, they are donated to enhance the lives of others. And you know, this is really important as well, because you know, sometimes you don't need organs, you just need tissues to help you get over a certain thing, like you know, like when someone is blind, and you know, they can give them that gift of sight again by donating the cornea, and that is the only part of the body that they can actually use after somebody has died. So usually with the other organs, the person has to be brain dead and on a machine, life-saving machine. But with the cornea, it doesn't matter if you're dead and you've been certified dead, they can still use that to enhance somebody's life. As Dr. Livingstone said, you're able to donate some organs and tissues while you're alive. So that could be the liver or the kidney, or tissues or bone marrow, as everybody knows. Why is organ and tissue donation so important? People in need of transplant rely on, you know, people like us. Well, people like us, because you know, yes, I'm a recipient, but I am also signed up to the register to give my organs, you know, when I die, because I'm not going to need it when I die. So if you're willing to donate your tissues and your organs, you can actually transform a lot of people's lives. You could save or improve up to 9 lives, and by donating organs. And you could also do improve people's up to 75 people lives by donating tissues. These stats that I'm going to be quoting right now come from the statistics that are released every month and every year to tell people what is happening with the donations across the UK. So last year, 1,580 people across the UK donated their organs after they died. Now that we might look at it and think that is a lot of people, but really it's not. It's actually looking at how, you know, we can increase that number to save and improve people's lives. And these 1,580 people improved the lives of 3,760 transplant patients. And also they were hope bringers to people who are still waiting on the list. Because once you hear somebody's got, you know that, you know, yours is not far behind, and it gives you that hope that, you know, you can hold on for a little bit more. Unfortunately, 372 people died whilst waiting for their call, and a further 746 were removed from the list due to deteriorating health. And that is only, because sometimes it might be that, there's an issue, you have a health issue that could stop you from receiving an organ or from going through the operation. So the doctors would decide, what could work, and if you are able to go through the operation. I'm sure Dr. Livingston can touch on that during the question time. I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor, but this is what we know. Organ donation in Black and Asian ethnic minority communities is really the issue, and that is why I took the decision to become a campaigner and eventually an ambassador for organ donation. We don't donate as ethnic minorities, partly because of different beliefs. It could be a religion, it could be cultural, it could be peer pressure, it could be family pressure and different things. And that is why, the government is actually pushing for people to actually go out there and speak to the people in the community to become organ donors. So over a third of patients waiting for a kidney transplant are from the Black and Asian minority communities. And unfortunately, many of those people die. We have a community of transplant patients, kidney disease or whichever transplant they're looking for. And we have a community and we all look out for each other. Unfortunately, most of them die because they waited too long. Just recently, we lost a 6-year-old girl in the community, which really impacted on most of us. People from the Black and Asian communities are likely to develop conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and certain forms of hepatitis than white people. So this makes us more likely to need a transplant. Mine came from, a miscarriage, but because I had multiple organ failure, all my organs shut down and I lost both kidneys. So I had to be on dialysis for 10 years. Fortunately, after 10 years, I got a transplant, which was a miracle. I wasn't expecting that. Many Black and Asian patients are able to receive a transplant from a white donor. It doesn't mean that it has to be specific to us, but usually what we say is that it is better for the organ or the transplant to come from somebody from your ethnic background because it is more successful. It's easier, the match is closer than if you get from somebody outside of your racial background or from your ethnic group. So that is why, I, as a Black person, I am campaigning within the Black community and asking people to become organ donors. All the major religions across the UK, they support organ donation. Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, all of them believe that, to give an organ is saving a life, is giving a gift to somebody, just like Jesus did. He died on the cross to save us. And if we can't fathom how much, what's the level of sacrifice he made. The little thing we can do, the only little thing we can do is to consider saving somebody else who is not you. And you don't have to sign up. You don't have to sign up today to say, oh, I'm going to give it right now. You can sign up for when you die. You can also be a living donor. We already do that as ethnic minorities to our brothers, sisters, friends who we love, and we would go and give a piece of our liver or a kidney. Why can't we do it for somebody else who is not even related to us? It's a no-brainer. So how does organ donation work? I know Dr. Livingston touched on this. The doctors will always try to save your life first. And if they consider that, it's not going to be possible, then they will make that decision to go ahead and, approach your family to speak to them about organ donation. I'm sure Sharon is going to touch on that later. So the organs are only removed for transplantation after the patient has died. So that's brain death. It is tested by the doctors, and 2 doctors do test that. So the first doctor will be probably your doctor or the surgeon, and then another independent doctor will come on and do that as well, with the family present. And at each point, they're talking to the family to tell them what they're doing, to update them so that they understand perfectly what's going on. If anybody from the family decides, we don't want to do it, then it won't go ahead. So usually before the removal of the organs take place, the NHS Blood and Transplant, the SNODS, the Specialist Nurses Organ Donation, would come and speak to the family and ask them to support the decision to donate and provide important information about the patient who has just died. A specialist nurse, as I said, provides support. So Sharon will be touching on that, support and care for the donor and their family. Families play a very important role in organ donation because, as I said earlier, if one member of the family says no, they will provide all the information to you. If one of your member of your family says no, and they try to explain why it's important and show you that, you know, this person is signed up and done everything possible because they want to donate to people, their organs to people to improve or save their lives, and the person still says, that one person still says no, then, you know, they would take a step back and they won't do anything about it. During organ donation, once a family agree to organ donation, usually it's like, you know, it's like a sort of, you know, relief that they have been able to help somebody else. And I'm sure that Emma is going to touch on that as well, because I don't have that experience, she does. Who can be a donor? Over more than 500,000 people die each year. That's 1 in 100 die in circumstances where their organs cannot be donated. So if you calculate that of 500,000 people dying each year, how many? It's not a lot. That is why we're campaigning for organ donation, and that's why the new law has come in. Usually to for the organs to be used, patients have to die in certain circumstances, and Sharon is going to touch on that. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether you have an illness or not, if just sign up to the register and let your family know that, you know, you want to be a donor. Have that conversation, whether it's over the dinner table, whatever you're doing, let them know that this is what you want to do. If your organs can be used, as I said at the beginning of my talk, you can still donate sites or other tissue to help other people. You don't need to die in hospital to donate a tissue. It's only the organs they require the person to die in the hospital. Tissues can be donated after death. So Dr. Livingstone touched on this earlier. So these are the organs that you can donate whilst you're alive, and you can also donate heart valves, bones, tendons, skin. You can also be a living donor, and you can donate a kidney or part of your liver. You can also donate to someone as a living donor, you can donate to someone you know, such as a family member or a friend, or someone you don't know, which is called altruistic donation. So a lot of people are donating anonymously to someone on the transplant waiting list, and they are known as non-directed altruistic donors. And there's actually somebody watching right now who's just done that, come off the street, gone to the hospital and said, I want to donate my kidney. And because he did that, his mom is also doing that as well. She is going through the workup to become an altruistic donor. So a growing number of people are offering to donate anonymously. Nearly 700 people donated across the UK, and they've donated a kidney to a stranger while they're alive, alongside the many thousands who have donated to a family or a family member or a friend. As we all know, we love our families. We want them to be okay. We want them to be fine. And you know, for me, I have 7 brothers and sisters, including my parents. All of them came forward. None of them was a match. But fortunately for me, after a long wait, you know, this family came forward and they agreed to organ donation. And that's why I'm here talking to you today. So you can do the same. If you want to find out more, that is the address, and also which I will put in the chat box for you to click and go through to register your decision. So, sorry, I need to get rid of this. So what do you need to do? So you need to record your organ donation decision on the NHS donor register. That link would be in the chat box. Tell your family and friends what you've decided, have the conversation. And if you've already registered and you want to change your recorded decision, you can do this by going online and completing the amend your details form. But you know, for me personally, I would prefer that people don't do that because a lot of people need those organs. So this is my appeal to everybody. Please get involved. Spread the message. Anyone can get involved by spreading the news. Start the conversation. Sign up and have that conversation with your friends, with your brothers, sisters, neighbors. I do that. Even on the streets, I'm talking to customer service advisors. I am asking them if they're organ donors. That's how passionate I am about this, because I believe that organ donation can save lives and improve people's lives as well. People like you listening right now, you can speak to others about signing up to the organ donation register. Everybody has a responsibility, whether you are a parent, child, doctor, nurse, administrator, manual worker, we need your help. We want you to talk to people. We also need nurses from our community to come work with the specialist nurses organ donation. There is a recruitment drive that's going to go on this, that's going to go out this year, towards the end of this year, and we're looking for nurses, Black nurses, to get on the team. Please contact me. I would give my contact to Amanda. Speak to her and contact me, and we can, you know, help you with that application, or contact you when they start recruiting. We need to change the narrative. We need to change the story. This is not something that we should ignore, or after this event, we just forget about it and we move on. I did not think about organ donation until I needed it. But today, I'm the one going everywhere and I'm talking, I'm asking people to be organ donors, to sign up to the organ donation register. So please have a thought for others. So you can find out more from the NHS organ donation website. And these are the resources which I can send to Amanda, later. And thank you for listening. I will stop sharing now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hilaria. That was a very, you know, smooth whistle-stop tour of explaining from your experience and what you can do about organ donation, and also answering some of the questions that people may have about it. You addressed a few myths. You addressed you know, the question about the ethnic group. We might go into that a little bit more in the questions that we might have. But you have touched on quite a few of the points there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to Emma. Emma's going to give us her story from experience really just giving Max's voice, but obviously from a mother as well. So we're going to get a two-pronged approach. Okay. So
Lovely.
Over to you, Emma.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you for inviting me today. So I'm just going to do what Hilary's just done and share my screen. I'm hoping this will work. So if you could thumbs up if you can see my screen. Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to go view slideshow from beginning. Okay, great. So heart failure was never something Hello?
Can't quite see it yet. We need to see actually on the screen. It needs to be shared.
Oh, I thought I'd shared it. Hang
I mean,
on.
what we're saying, they could see you, but not what you're sharing.
Oh, that's strange. Right, let me go back. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
Yes,
lovely,
see it now.
lovely. I didn't double click. That was my mistake. Okay, so. Okay, can you see it now? Okay, yeah, good. So heart failure was never something I had associated with young people or children until our Livewire fun-loving son fell ill in December 2016. He was only 8 years old and had been suffering with breathlessness, lethargy and weight loss for a couple of months prior. But we had no idea that the problem was heart related. We thought he was suffering from asthma. And so these photos were taken around the end of October 2016 on holiday, and the pale face and even the sternum was starting to jut out as Max's enlarging heart craved the space. And I suppose looking back, the clues were there, but you know, we just didn't see them. And that's Max's older brother Harry, who's 2.5 years older than Max. On the 8th of December 2016, Max was rushed to Leighton Hospital in Crewe with severe coughing and vomiting. And after his condition deteriorated, the team there acted quickly to stabilise him and arrange a safe, urgent transfer to the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. And there he was diagnosed with a condition called dilated cardiomyopathy, which is believed to have been caused by a virus in his throat that dropped to Max's heart. His heart had become so large that it was no longer able to pump the blood around his body effectively. And we were told on that first night that our son had a 33% chance of getting better, a 33% chance of requiring a heart transplant, and a 33% chance of passing away. But Max did soldier on under the superb care in Manchester. And the photo on the left, Max was visited by Zlatan Ibrahimovic from Manchester United on one day. The following day, the Manchester City players came, so Max had to hide his merchandise and pretend to be loyal to both. But he wasn't getting any better. And in early January 2017, he was transferred to the Freeman Hospital in Newcastle upon Tyne, where he was assessed and placed on the urgent list for a heart transplant. So the wait had begun. Max's condition continued to deteriorate, and so on the 2nd of February 2017, Max was fitted with a mechanical pump called a left ventricular assist device, and we still have the very pump that was fitted inside Max's heart. We have it on the mantelpiece as a reminder of how it kept Max relatively safe, and it acted. It was able to whiz the blood around Max's body for him, and it's regarded as a bridge to transplant. So we were quite daunted at the prospect of managing the complexity of the pump, but the amazing staff at the Freeman reassured us and trained us with regards to how the pump operates. And the photo in the middle is Max after the pump was fitted with open heart surgery. And actually the nappy reminded us that Max, almost like a regression, because Max was so vulnerable and weak, and he lost a lot of weight. So Max soon got used to the driveline wire that came out of his waist and the battery packs and control pack. I mean, it was amazing technology which kept Max relatively safe while he waited for that special gift. The hospital even organised a bespoke, individually designed waistcoat, which you can see on this picture, which could carry all the bits and bobs, which were quite heavy. So he became Bionic Boy, really. And the cartoon on the right was drawn for us by Tony Husband, the private eye cartoonist, which I thought was quite funny. The pump gave us a level of independence as Max could push his drip stand, and the pump allowed him to be mobile enough for visits to the playroom, and sometimes we were even able to go to the Freeman Park opposite the hospital, which was lovely. The picture on the top left shows Sophie, which is who is one of Max's favourite nurses at the Freeman. They had a lovely bond. We were bowled over really by the availability of such intricate technology and by the skill, dedication and compassion within the NHS that we witnessed. But we knew that Max couldn't stay like this indefinitely and that he desperately needed a new heart. However, Max's positive attitude, courage and wit and mischief saw him through numerous ups and downs in his condition. So the downs included things like hospital infections, feeding tube struggles, and an anaphylactic reaction to some antibiotics. But I am firm in my belief that psychological optimism has a direct impact on physical health. But things did get too much for Max at times, and this is one of those photos that really captures his struggle. This probably is Max at his worst. At this point, he spent 3 weeks in intensive care on adrenaline, and his weight plummeted to 3 stone. It's quite a shocking image. And I suppose the hardest part of waiting for a compatible organ was the not knowing when or if one would become available and whether Max would be able to stay fit enough for long enough and to withstand such a serious operation. And some people waiting for a transplant have to be taken off the list because they're just not well enough to survive a transplant. We gained an incredible insight into the work of this unique and truly wonderful NHS facility at the Freeman Hospital. The sheer number of specialists involved in the care of just one little boy, and how they all work together to make important, bespoke and well-considered and caring decisions was quite remarkable. We decided as a family, and with Max's full blessing, to get behind the Mirror campaign to change the law for life in May 2017. It wasn't an easy decision to get involved in the Mirror campaign. It was even harder choosing the appropriate photograph of Max that we knew would have the potential of featuring on the front page of the Mirror. So we pored over many photographs, but there was this one that just stood out. It was a harrowing photograph of Max, which captured the juxtaposition of Max's broken, failing and underweight body against the expression and spirit of human hope and optimism in fighting adversity, with that sort of half smile and begging eyes. If any image was going to have a significant impact, this was the one. We got the call that a heart had become available on the 2nd of August 2017, after another offer had fallen through a few days earlier. We felt excited, relieved, grateful, and yet utterly terrified, all rolled into one. So what do you do when your son is having a risky operation like a heart transplant? Well, we ended up in the David Lloyd Health Club across the road having a glass of wine amongst a sea of fitness fanatics. And the picture on the right was taken the day before Max's transplant. So Max had already sort of bounced back from the disappointment a few days earlier of one sort of falling through. And the picture on the left is Max about to go into theatre. So when we saw Max post-transplant, again, they put them in nappies, and Max was in a nappy, but this time the nappy represented rebirth and a new start, a new beginning. When we visited Max for the first time after his operation, his heart was beating a solid, unwavering 120 beats per minute, a stark contrast to his old heart, which would go beyond 150 beats per minute if he so much as moved his position in bed. What a difference. And in his cubicle, we looked at the notice board on the wall, and on it was written Max's name in sort of bubble shadow writing. And underneath it was a heart with a little arrow through it. And beneath that was the signature of the artist, one of Max's surgeons, Mr. Dorita, who, along with Mr. Hassan, had transplanted our son. So in that moment, the power and beauty of the loving care our son was under became so clear in our minds. And the picture on the right is Max he had to blow bubbles to help his lung function because his lungs were just struggling a little bit post-transplant. So that's him doing his lung physio. This was the day we brought Max home. And the gentleman on the top right, he was at the time the manager of the Sick Children's Trust, which is a charity that looked after us as a family within a place called Scott House, where we were able to live on the hospital grounds and stay close. The feelings were mixed. Would we get the medication right? Will we cope without the Freeman team, who we'd been with for 9 months? And will Max be okay? It was some months post-transplant before we knew about Kira, and every day whilst we watched Max grow stronger, we wondered about our donor family and how they were coming to terms with their loss. It's the at times sort of complex and conflicting emotions which define transplantation, sort of the wonderful, joyous giving of life to one at the end of life for another, sort of the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. And it was Kira's mum who reached out to us, and we became Facebook friends and learned more and more about Kira. And this is the first photograph we saw of Kira, who happened to be the same age as Max, and who also whose heart happened to be a perfect match for Max. We actually got to meet Kira's family. Joe Ball, Kira's father, made the decision to agree to donating Kira's organs, who actually saved 4 lives, not just Max's. We feel so blessed that we know our donor family, and our love and admiration for Joe and his family have only grown. It's only grown deeper with the passage of time. And to meet the Ball family is to meet a wonderful family whose dignity and courage is humbling, and whose capacity to think of others, firstly with the incredible act of donating Kira's organs, and then in setting up the Inspired by Kira charity, is inspiring in itself. It's the most poignant and powerful representation of the goodness and strength in the human spirit. I mean, if you imagine 3 members of Joe's family were in 3 separate hospitals after a car crash, so to be coping with that and still be able to make that decision is just amazing. At the beginning of December 2018, I was asked by the Health Secretary's office for our blessing to call the law Max and Kira's law. We were completely supportive of the move, and were actually quite relieved that Kira's name was to join Max's. The whole story had evolved with Max and Kira now being inextricably linked. The change in the law relates to organ donation, so how inarguably right that the beautiful little girl who gave her heart to Max should be recognised for bestowing that most priceless of gifts, life itself. The name of the law is symbolic of the 2 sides of organ donation, so Max representing organ recipients and all those waiting for a transplant, and Kira representing all organ donors and their families. One important point to make is that you're never waiting or wishing for someone to die. You're waiting and wishing for someone to give their blessing to organ donation. I remember a radio interview in London when the interviewer asked whether I felt guilty. And I said, well, absolutely not. Gratitude is what you feel, not guilt. What happened would have happened anyway. You have no bearing on that. You're just grateful for the gift of life and for the decision that's made. Theresa May stated, Kira's parents' courage and strength is inspiring. It's fitting we name this important law so we can pay tribute to Kira as well as to Max, to ensure her life is never forgotten. So whilst we never met Kira, she is and always will be a part of our family. And the picture on the right was actually taken by Joe, Kira's father. We sent a photograph of Max to the Ball family, and they had a figurine that represented Kira. So I thought that's a beautiful photograph. This picture shows how transformative heart transplantation is. So you can see they almost look like two different little boys, the little boy on the bottom left, and then Max after the transplant on the top left. It's incredible, the difference, and I'm sure you'll appreciate. You know, I should say that heart transplantation can come with complications post-transplant. It's not always smooth sailing. There are side effects to the medication, and sometimes heart transplant recipients subsequently go on to need a kidney transplant because of the anti-rejection medication really batters your kidneys quite badly. So, and also Max has some, because of all the time in end stage heart failure and the lack of oxygen to the brain, he has some struggles with short-term memory and processing, and so he can struggle at school with his education. So no, but it's a bit like he's not out of the woods completely, but the grass is green, the flowers are blooming, and the rabbits are hopping. We actually wrote a book called Golden Heart about our experience, and it's published by Austin Macaulay, and the proceeds are being split between 3 charities that are important to us: Chuff, the Sick Children's Trust, and Inspired by Kira. So just to tell you a bit more about what the law means, the law change. Max and Kira's law came into law on the 20th of May after a 3-year campaign in which, as a family, we supported the Mirror newspaper campaign. We also went to Parliament several times and gave a speech at the Labour Party conference. Many individuals and organisations contributed to the campaign. We were just one small part, including Kira's family, the British Heart Foundation, the British Medical Association, and Kidney Care UK. The new law means that unless you've recorded a decision to opt out or are in an excluded group, then you will be considered to agree to organ donation. The campaign was paused due to COVID-19, but was reactivated in the run-up to the law change. And on the 20th of May, there were 551 items of news coverage. So for us, that was one of the goals, that the law change would raise awareness about organ donation and encourage family conversations. On the day the law changed, there was a big spike in NHS organ donation website visits and visits to the organ donor register. Despite COVID-19, the law change went ahead as planned, as addressing the shortage of organs is a government priority. The date was already written into law when it gained royal assent. So not going ahead with the law change could have stalled those efforts by years, potentially, and wasted the considerable investment that had already been committed for the public education campaign. There have been fewer people opting out than was expected, and the percentage is lower than it was when Wales changed to an opt-out system in 2015, which saw 6% of the population opting out. And the excluded groups are those under 18, people who lack the capacity to understand the change, and people who have lived in England for less than 12 months. So why did the law change? Well, last year, as Hilary said, nearly 400 patients died waiting for an organ. Only last week, a 6-year-old child died waiting for a heart and double lung transplant, which is incredibly sad for the transplant community. And the law was changed to save more lives by addressing the shortage of organs, to continue the progress and trigger a transformation in public attitudes and culture, and to drive promotion and awareness about organ donation. So if you have more known decisions, this tends to result in a higher consent rate, as families are more likely to honour their loved ones' organ donation's wishes if they are clear about what those wishes are. In Wales, the law changed to an opt-out system in 2015, and the consent rate there increased significantly from less than 50% to around 75%, and it now has the highest consent rate across all the 4 UK territories. We hope the same will happen in England, and that suffering can be reduced for those waiting for organs. The key messages, I guess, are everyone still has a choice. Your family will still be consulted. Faith and belief will be respected, and there is no deadline to record your decision. So many people feel, some people feel that, you know, well, do I still have a choice? They ask that question, and the answer is yes. You still have a choice about whether you want to be an organ donor, and you can register your decision, whatever that is, on the organ donor registry. You can also actually specify which organs or tissues you would like to donate if you opt in. So there are now there's actually more choice than ever before. So you can register to be a donor, you can opt out if you don't want, if it's not for you, and no judgment will be passed. You can amend a recorded decision. You can withdraw from the registry, but if you do that, your consent will be deemed. You can nominate a maximum of 2 representatives or give specific instructions. Those representatives can make the decision on your behalf if you were to pass away. And you can tick a faith and belief statement where you can say, I would like the NHS staff to speak to my family about how organ donation can go ahead in line with my faith or beliefs. And there's a whole team in NHSBT, including Hilary, who link in with faith leaders, and there are actually faith-specific organ donor cards. So, for example, there's a Hindu organ donation committee. In England, we find it easy to arrange life insurance and to write wills, but we don't always discuss what we want to happen with our bodies when we die. We wanted to break the taboo and raise awareness to encourage people to have that conversation and share their wishes. We felt that a change in law to one of deemed consent would support the vast majority of us who would willingly donate, but who might not get round to recording their decision. And importantly, it would still remain a choice and would thus always be regarded as the giving of a most wonderful gift. In France, posters are displayed with simple messages like, everyone donates unless you don't want to. Your family will still be involved. It's easier for bereaved families and specialist nurses if the decision is recorded and the family know their loved one's decision. Most families will honour their loved one's decision. And the family are always consulted because for several reasons. One, out of consideration and empathy, this is an end-of-life care decision. Secondly, they may be able to confirm the most recent decision of their loved one. And it is necessary for important medical and social information, which can impact the safety of any transplant. But really important point, clinicians will never proceed if the family objects strongly. And there's just some points about why it's important to make and share your decision. And actually including the point that many families feel enormous pride and comfort in knowing that their relative went on to save lives. And I know that Kira's family do gain comfort from seeing Max, you know, progress and thrive with that second chance. So yes, just to emphasize what you need to do: A, make your decision; B, record your decision; and C, tell your family and friends. And finally, just to say, there are 3 takeaways for me. The first one is you never know what's around the corner. Organ donation is as much about being a potential recipient as it is about donating. You know, it's as was stated earlier that, you know, organ donation is about that stranger on the bus potentially saving your life. You're more likely to need an organ than you are ever to donate. Hilary mentioned the statistics. Only 1 in 100 deaths are in such a way that allows organ donation to go ahead. The second takeaway is to really treasure and value our NHS. When Max was poorly, I downloaded a heart transplant manual from the richest country in the world. And there was a whole chapter dedicated to funding your child's heart transplant. How lucky we are in this country. You know, when we think about the cost of Max's care, the NHS was there for him and for our family also. And finally, the final takeaway is the human spirit in adversity, both in Max and his battle with end-stage heart failure, and in Joe Ball and his decision to donate Kira's organs at a time of unimaginable grief. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't keep track of time. I hope I haven't gone over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. You clearly explained the whole process of what happened with Max, yourself, what was going on for you, what was going on for Kira as parents, and how important that whole process, what took place, the doctors, the nurses. There was a lot going on for you. And can I, in asking, what actually, just one question, what kept it together for you?
That's a really good question. I mean, we've always been churchgoers, so faith helped us a lot. In fact, Max's mechanical pump, it sits on the this is the cross that sits inside it, funnily enough, and that sort of reminds us of our faith, and it reminds us to count our blessings if we're having an off day. But also, I think it was a really tough time, but I think trying to keep a sense of humor was very important for us and for Max. And you know, you find yourself almost, the stress is so much that you almost find yourself seeking out humor to try to alleviate the stress. So yeah, that helped a lot, trying to keep Max's spirits as positive and upbeat as we could. It wasn't always possible, and you know, there were times when you know, you just break down. But the other thing that helped was the supportive Freeman Hospital psychology team that didn't just support Max, but also that they had time for me and Paul and Harry, Max's brother, as well. So the team supported the whole family, and that psychological and boost of having that team there for you really helped.
Thank you. Much appreciated. We're going to move on to Sharon. Sharon is the specialist nurse in organ donation, and I think it's going to be helpful for you to explain to us the stages and steps that take place and your role and what you play in organ donation.
That's fine. Thank you very much for inviting me to come along. I'm stepping in for a specialist nurse. I was a specialist nurse. I retired about 4 years ago, but I am part of the organ donation ambassador program, and that's how come I know Emma and Hilaria. So I'm quite happy to go through what part of my job was. I'm quite happy to do that. Many of the answers to some of the questions that people might have been thinking, I think both Hilaria and Emma have gone over that, so I'm not going to repeat that. Probably if anybody's got questions as I'm going along, if they want to put it into the chat, then I can do it as a Q&A kind of session. But I can basically talk about what happens from start to finish, if that's all right with you. As you rightly say, there's two parts to donation. There's the donor side and there's the recipient side. I was part of the donation team, so it was part of my job that once a consultant in either ICU or A&E had made that decision that to carry on treating your loved one was not in their best interests, or they weren't going to survive, when the end of life decision had been made, then donation would be brought into a conversation with a family, and that's when they would be referred to the organ donation team, and I would be sent out to speak to the family, go through any questions that they might have, and guide them through the process. One of the main changes from the law change is the fact that because you've made your decision to opt in and you've told your family that decision and that's what you want to do, it's your choice, it's not a government's choice, it's nobody else's choice, it's your decision, then a family are far more likely to go along with donation because they know that that's what you wanted to do at the end of your life. before that, a lot of families would say no. One, because they were probably asked at the wrong time, wrong place, by the wrong person, or it is that they just didn't know what you wanted to do at the end of your life. People seem to think that talking about what you want to do at the end of your life, they're quite happy to talk about the funeral, what songs they'd like to listen to, what they want to be buried in, etc. But they're not able to talk about what they want to do at the, with donation, because they think that by talking about death, they're tempting fate in some respects. And when your time comes, your time comes. It's not, you have no choice in it. It's made by a higher person. It's nothing to do with what you decide to do. So a lot of families would turn around basically based on the fact that they didn't know that that's what you wanted to do. So the main change in law is that they do know, as long as you tell them. You've registered your decision. You can choose which organs and tissues you want to donate. And there is a lot more choice now, and that makes it easier for people to make a choice. As Emma rightly said, you are far more likely to be in need of a transplant rather than becoming a donor. And as Hilaria said, with the many thousands of people that die a year in the UK, because of the specifics which I'll go into, there's only about 5,000 people that are suitable to go along and do donation. So what happens? How do you get to the point where you're considered for donation? There's two ways of donating, and as Hilaria briefly touched upon, one of them is to be declared brainstem dead by a consultant and another medic. And the other one is to donate after your brain has stopped beating. And I'll go into the differences for you. So for that reason, you have to be in ICU where you're on a ventilator, so that treatment can be withdrawn in certain aspects. So we'll talk about donation after brainstem death. That could result of head trauma, a subarachnoid hemorrhage, a bleed in the brain, an infection. Usually it's a trauma or a bleed on the brain that causes that. And you're attached to a machine. That machine is doing the breathing for you. You are not conscious of anything that's going on around. They will keep you sedated whilst you're on a ventilator just to make it easier for the person to breathe. But if they take you off that sedation and you're not waking up and other certain anatomical changes are taking place, it could be deemed that there's no longer communication with your brain to the rest of your body because the brainstem has died. And if that's died, your brain's died. And if your brain's died, you're dead. Simple as that. But there has to be a set of two very specific tests to go through before you're declared brainstem dead. If you are and you fill that criteria, you will go to theatre if you're going to donate on a ventilator, nice and pink, warm, looking like you're just going down for an operation, but you are and have been declared dead. The other way is to donate after your heart has stopped beating. That could be somebody that's had a heart attack outside a hospital. It could be somebody that has had a bleed on the brain, but are able to breathe for themselves. They have a cough reflex, the pupils are reacting. They're not meeting the criteria that you would have to meet to be declared brainstem dead. And in that case, the decision, if you've made to donate, would be that at some point you would be taken off the ventilator. Nature would be allowed to take its course, and if you die within a specific time frame, you will go to theatre to donate your organs. And they are the two ways that you can donate. And if anybody's got specific questions to which part, I can quite happily answer that. It's not a quick process. It's not a process that can appear like it does on TV. There's not something on Holby City that there's a patient upstairs waiting for your heart. It's far more complex than that. And it can take up to 24 hours from it first being discussed to actually going ahead. And I think that families need to be educated along that line to make sure that they're not thinking that it's a quick process. Donation is done by a specific team of people that have no dealing whatsoever with the patient at the transplanting hospital. They are usually transplant surgeons that come and do the retrieval, because they have skills to remove the organs in a respectful, dignified manner, making sure that they are retrieved properly so that they're in the best state possible to be transplanted into somebody else in order for them to work. They are very dedicated people. Part of my job would be to go to theatre with my donor, with my patient, and help with the process within theatre. People have worries that if you are on the organ donor register and you're in ICU and you're in that situation, that just because you're on the register, that your treatment whilst you're in ICU is going to change, just because you're going to go on and save somebody's life. That's not the case. Donation only occurs or is discussed when medical professionals who have a first duty of care to save life have made that decision that they can't. So it is not a change in your circumstances that would change your treatment. If, for example, the doctors before donation have placed a do not resuscitate order on you, and you've agreed to donation and we're in the process of donation, if you were to have that heart attack, you would not be resuscitated just because you're on the register. That would be unfair, that would be cruel, and that would be unethical. We wouldn't be resuscitating anybody just because they've said yes to donation. That's not the right thing to do. So that's a myth that needs to be put to bed, that your treatment doesn't change because you're on the register. They will fight to preserve life until they have no other option left. So, as everybody else has said, the important thing is to talk to your family and let the wishes be known. As I said, it's not an easy process. When you are consented, your family gives consent for you to donate, then you are put onto a general database, the information of your condition before you were admitted to hospital, your general health, travel information, questions that would be asked at a blood donor session, i.e. sexual health questions, all information that the family can give to the specialist nurses. One helps to make sure that the donor is going to be in the best position to be able to donate, because you have to make sure that the recipient is safe as well. So family are involved, and all that information gets put onto a database, and the transplant centres, the transplant surgeons will have a look at that database. And if they've got somebody on their waiting list that's compatible, then the offer of the donation goes to them. And once a donation is accepted, then a recipient retrieval team is dispatched to the hospital. As I said, there are 9 transplant teams in the UK. So it's like ripples on a pond. If one team's out, you go to the next team, etc., etc. And that's sometimes where the delay in going to theatre can happen. They come, they retrieve the organs, the patient is treated with dignity and respect throughout. It's just like any other operation. Any end of life wishes. I've been in theatre with people doing last offices, and we've had rock music playing in the background. I've put people in football shirts. I've put people in wedding dresses. I've done what the family want at the end, so that if they want to see the loved one at the end, then they're seeing them in the best way they want to. And it is a good thing for people to see their loved one after donation, again, because of any myths that they may have, i.e. you're not treated with respect, it's a quick, fast, you're not bothered, etc. That is a myth as well. People are given a gift of life and deserve to be treated with respect and dignity from start to finish. So how's the organs allocated? As Hilaria said, the BAME population have a longer wait because, i.e., there's less donors from within that community. Organs are allocated with a person's blood group and a person's tissue typing. And as Hilaria pointed out, that is far likely to be a better match if it's coming from within your own community, your own ethnicity. So that's why, because there's a lack of donors in the BAME community, people have to wait a little bit longer for that donation to come up. As Hilaria said, none of the religious communities have an objection to donation in principle, but families are quite within their rights to speak to their own religious leaders to get advice on to what they can do, and any religious belief is respected. But it is changing, with people becoming more aware, and religious leaders becoming more, not educated, but more aware of the need within their community. But again, all faiths, all religions are respected. It is a gift of life. People say, well, they didn't like this, the donor didn't like this in life, but I do. Am I going to get the spirit transferred with them, etc.? There's no scientific basis to that, but as you know, the human being, the human mind is a wonderful thing. And if people believe that change has happened to them, then who are we to dismiss that? If that's what they believe, that's what they believe. There is stories in the press that people that have had a transplant suddenly wake up and they can speak French. Who are we to say that that's wrong? That's their belief, and if it helps them to cope with receiving a gift, so be it. But there's no scientific basis to that. A cost to the NHS. In everything in life now is related to costs. An average cost of a transplant operation, a retrieval operation, is about £10,000. But if you compare that to a kidney patient on dialysis, who's been on dialysis for 10 years, having a transplant will save the NHS approximately £250,000 in treatments. So it is cost effective, but money apart, it gives a recipient another chance at life. How long, how short that could be, it is a gift of life, and they get a second chance at life. There is no set time scale for how long an organ will last with somebody, but with medical advances, the medications, anti-rejection drugs are improving. The question is, how long is a piece of string? Nobody knows. But to give you some facts and figures, the longest heart recipient so far has lived 35 years after having his transplant, and a kidney patient has just celebrated her 50th anniversary from receiving a transplant. 50 years extra to life, to see a family grow up, to get married, to have children of their own. You can never underestimate the gift of what transplant can do to somebody. So I think the questions have been answered by my two colleagues, but I'm quite happy to answer any other questions if anybody may have any. But all I can say is just have that conversation. If it's after listening to a podcast or a video like we've done this afternoon, in a quiet, non-confrontational, not in the middle of a hospital ward, not in the middle of A&E or whatever, but in a situation where you're calm and it's just a general conversation. Have that conversation. Make your mind up what you want to do. Register that decision online, and just let your family know. And then you will find that, God forbid, that you're in that situation where you're becoming a donor, the family are more likely to say yes and withhold your wishes because they know that that's what you want to do. So I will close it at that and just say thank you again for Emma and Hilaria and yourselves for asking us to come along and try and raise any awareness. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Sharon. You have also answered very clearly some of the questions that had come up, you know, in relation to what happens if I'm taking somebody's organ and their spirit comes into me. And I mean, if anyone else wants to add any comments or views, please come in and share that. So there's a question that was asked about if I'm a donor, can I actually determine who I want to give it to?
No, you can't. For one, that is totally, in many people's eyes, wrong. You can't turn around and say, I want my organ to go to a non-alcoholic person, an alcoholic person, to say your liver, etc. It's unethical to do that. It's not right. If you're willing to give a gift of life, you should be willing to give that gift of life to anybody, not be specific on who you want to give that gift to. The only way that it would come in that respect is, as I've said before, they're more likely to go to somebody within your ethnicity because of your tissue type and your blood type. But no, you cannot stipulate who's going to get what. As I said, that's totally unfair. And as I said, if you're willing to give, then you should be willing to give to anybody.
Okay. And
can I just jump in there as well? Because already in the African community, we already donate to our family. So in that situation, it's not giving to anybody, you're giving to family. So because there have been mothers who've given to sons, sons giving to fathers, you know, and people giving to friends. There was a particular guy called Ali who heard that his lecturer in school had needed a kidney transplant, and he went and he donated to her as well. So in that respect, in terms of our community, we're able to pick who we want, especially when it's family.
okay, is that determined by whether you're a match or not?
It will be, yes, it will be, because you have to go through specific blood work, etc., etc., and it will be, as I said, through your blood type, your blood group, and your tissue typing. I know that living donation within the Black community is the way forward and is the main way of donation. I agree with that, and I can agree with what Hilary's saying. But from my point of view, I have actually been in with families that have said X, Y, and Z with regard to their loved ones' organs, who gets what. And to me, personally, and this is only my personal opinion, I'm not speaking on behalf of NHSBT or anybody else, I think that that is wrong. I think that if you're willing to be a donor and you're willing to take an organ, you should be willing to donate it. But as Ilaria has correctly pointed out, with living donation, there is that option to say who you want to. But again, it's based on medicine, it's based on blood type and tissue typing, etc.
Right.
If I just add further, when I was looking for a donor, as I said during when I was talking, I have 7 brothers and sisters, including my parents. Each one of them came forward to test. They were tested. Unfortunately, they couldn't donate to me. One person was close enough, which was my immediate elder sister, but she couldn't donate because my antibodies were very high at 97%. So she was unable to donate. Unfortunately, a few years down the line, a mother agreed to organ donation, and I'm here today.
Okay, I can agree with that, because my mother, I mean, she's deceased now 30 odd years, and she had well, she died in the end of kidney failure. And when the problem with her kidneys arose, we looked at donating a kidney, and there's 6 children and none of us had her blood type, and that's because she had a rare type of blood. And that's something new she found out, and then she had to walk around with a card in the end. but you know, she went on dialysis for you know, several years until eventually you know, as you know, the body just deteriorates and it just couldn't cope anymore. So I understand when you say that you know, who actually can match, and sometimes some family members, immediate ones, actually don't match with your parents or siblings or any relatives. So it's important that you can get a near as match as possible, but whatever you can get is good enough. Yes.
So there is what is called designated donation, or directed donation, where you can actually specify in your donation as to who you want to receive the donated organs, and it's there. So you can actually specify who you want, but it's not encouraged, because you can't choose and pick. There's what is called designated or directed donation, and it's quite clear, where you can actually pick and specify who the recipient should be, and that is in both living and deceased donors. So it's there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chisimba. Just mentioning something about that on this point. Again, because obviously kidneys is an issue within my family, and it seems to be a genetical thing. But my older brother, he's a recipient of a kidney, and when he was told that he needed a kidney transplant because both his kidneys started to fail, he was told that living in Australia, he was told that he would need to receive a kidney from someone who's Aboriginal descent. Now he's Black, Caribbean, living in Australia, but told you're going to have to get a kidney from the Aboriginal ethnic group, because you know we don't have a match really for you. But then you know, he did receive a kidney, and he actually received it from a white female who was in a car accident, and he's had that kidney for over 20 years plus, and he's doing okay. So there's different things that can take place and different reasons, and finding matches and tissues. But I understand when they're saying that you need to get someone as close as you can to your group, which will help. But at the end of the day, if it's survival, you can get what's the best, what's good enough, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So one of the problems for organ donation, as much as organ donation is good, but we also need to realize that there are problems that you know, are associated after you've received the organ donation, So rejection is very high. You know, it's quite high, organ rejection. And this is why receiving an organ from someone who is as close to you as possible reduces the risks of rejection, because the suffering that the recipient undergoes as a result of rejection can be really, really terrible, really terrible. And they have to be on huge amount of immunosuppressions. It's not just a rose and white. This is why we say to receive an organ, you must be sick enough and fit enough to receive the transplanted organ. So you know, so many times, like in the lung, for example, I deal with a lot of patients who have had organ rejection and have to look into their lungs, to bronchoscope and all sorts of things. So actually, to prevent that from happening, this is why it is obviously encouraged that you get the organ from someone who is as close as possible to you.
Okay. So, and in close, you're meaning, first of all, whether if that person can be a living donor, as close as possible, that could be a family member. Then if you can't get one from a family member, it's somebody within your ethnic group that is as close as possible.
That's right.
And that reduces the rejection that will happen once it's been receive?
That's right. So if you look at the incidences of rejection, they are much lower in identical twins, for example. If you receive an organ from an identical twin, you are less likely to get rejection as compared to if you receive an organ even from a family member, your own sister who is not an identical twin. So the closer you are to your recipient and to the donor, the less likely you're going to get this rejection. Very important. In fact, I think whether it was Aurelia or Emma who touched this, one of the problems that we do get, I mean, I get a lot of these complaints from, BEM to say, oh, you've been waiting. Like, I think one of you, Emma or Aurelia, said there's about a third of people waiting for kidney transplant from the Black and Asian population. So it's not, and some people interpret this like the transplant team actually chooses and pick and actually disadvantage the Black and Asian population. But the real thing is that we Black have got a lot of myths around this. Really, a lot of cultural issues, which actually sometimes we say, oh, I'm going to get a ghost in my house and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of myth. Religious people also, this is why this topic is really so important, really important. And I wish that when churches open, this team that is here can go into the churches and actually start having seminars in the churches.
Can I just come in there? I have been doing that in churches across Greater Manchester. And last year I was at the Seventh-day Adventist Church talking about organ donation, and also at the Lighthouse Redeemed Church. And one place I want to go next is the music festival, the one that all the churches come together in Manchester and see if we can do something really big. It's really important to me as a Christian as well that this message goes out, not only as a Christian, as an ethnic minority, that we start to think about each other. We start to think about how we can make things better for our brother, our sister, our friend, sign up and become an organ donor. And if you would receive, if you need one, why would you not sign up to become one? I am signed up and you can do too. So if any church is looking to do anything at all, I'm quite happy anywhere in Greater Manchester to go and talk about this subject. Thank you.
Fabulous. It's really quite important, actually, really important. I think we should move this even further, even beyond Manchester, actually, if it's possible, because it's really a big issue, really big issue. And I think this team, I really thank this team, for all the planning that you've put in. It's such an important.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And I think one of the points that I think what is mentioned is there is a point in scripture where it talks about God and greater love hath no man than this, for him to lay down his life for a friend. Now, if that is something, is that something that it's like a command of giving, and life is important. And I think one thing that I just want to ask is the life and the blood. So we're talking blood and donation. Are they the same? Blood donation and organ donation, are they the same?
I'll come in there. Organ donation usually occurs with somebody that's died. Blood donation occurs, you can give blood at a blood clinic every 3 to 6 months, depending on your general health. Again, that blood group that you belong to, O, A, B, AB, the 4 main blood groups, that can get transfused into somebody that needs a blood donation. So that's probably where the main difference is between blood and organ donation. Organ donation is what they call a bloodless donation, in the fact that any organ that is removed from the body is perfused, flushed, if you like, with preserving solution to help it on its journey to the recipient, and that will flush out any blood that might be lying in that organ when it's retrieved. So that in places like classed as bloodless. I hope that helps clear up a little bit of the misunderstanding there.
Yeah. So it's important to know that, because many people might say, "Oh, I'm not having an organ. No, I'm not doing that, or I'm not giving one." But being a recipient of blood, if anything happens to you, you know, if you're in an accident and you need a transfusion, you're still receiving a donation, aren't you? So it's still no different, isn't it? In a sense.
It's not any different, you know, from the organ donation, because blood is not just, you know, taking it through the vein, it's also the bone marrow donation as well. For blood donation, for someone to donate blood, you have to be healthy. You have to be able to support that process to do that. And I think most people, because of those myths that have been going around on the internet and, you know, from person to person, Chinese whispers, they refuse to become organ donors, but they would actually agree to go for blood donation. In our community, the BAME, the Black and Asian ethnic minority community, most people would rather go and donate blood, and we do have special blood. There are some people who have special blood. I've forgotten the name. It's called golden blood. And it is so special that it donates to everybody, but they can't receive. It's not the normal one. It's called a different name entirely, which I can't remember now. I will try and find and send it to you, Amanda. There's a leaflet for that. When I went to speak at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I had those flyers and I was giving it out to people. And the blood donation team are currently looking for donors because they don't have a lot of blood. So usually, if anybody is thinking about donating, they can go to www.blood.co.uk and sign up to become blood donors, and they will be signposted to where they need to go if they do really want to become blood donors.
Is that for the BAME community who have sickle cell?
Yeah. Yes, that is for the sickle cell. It's also for people like us who are going in for organ transplant, because when I was in the hospital, I had blood as well. When I had the crisis in 2008 and 2010, when I had the multiple organ failure, I needed blood, and I was given several pints of blood to keep me alive. So we do need it, but it's just that there's a drop in donation right now. So that is one of the reasons I'm speaking today. It's not just about organ donation, it's also about blood.
I'd just like to add that when Max was poorly, he had blood transfusions 2 or 3 times, I think. Once when, you know, he just needed that extra boost, and secondly after the transplant itself, because he lost quite a bit of blood in the operation. So you look at the bags of blood as you walk past and you think, gosh, I wonder what kind soul has donated that blood. And you know, you almost feel as grateful for the blood donor as you do the organ donor, because without the blood transfusion, Max might not have survived the transplant. So it's equally as important. And, you know, I've started donating blood myself more now, although I used to do it at uni, but then you sort of life sidetracks you a bit, and it's something that's really important.
Yeah, and I would mention as a recipient, because there's some people who cannot donate, people who are sick and on certain medications, but even if you're sick, or you have a certain condition, you can still go to the center. There are tests that they will carry out and tell you if you are actually eligible, if you're able to donate. One thing I know for sure is that if you've been outside the country in the last 6 months, you are not able to donate. They expect you to be in the country for up to a year before you can come and donate. That's one of the conditions, but it might have changed. I don't know. It's fairly recent. You know, things are changing as we go because of the COVID. They can just go onto the book the blood.co.uk, book an appointment, go in to see somebody or call somebody because you can't go in anymore, and have that chat about blood donation.
Mhm. Right, well, I don't think we have any more questions. I think the list of questions that were there have been answered and covered in your presentations, which has been very helpful, very informative. I'm sure that this, although it's gone live, it has been recorded. So many people will be watching this from this point on. So don't think that it's over here. It will continue. I think at this point, I want to say thank you. Unless anybody wants to summarize anything, any points that they want to clarify.
I just want to say again and put out the appeal to the community, especially to the Black nurses. We've been talking here today about organ donation, and we know how important Sharon's job was when she was working as a SNOD. Currently, they're struggling. The capacity is very low. We're looking for Black nurses in the community, Black and Asian nurses, to come forward to become SNODs, to become specialist nurses. Because when they have ethnic minority nurses going through that issue, it is usually comforting for them to see somebody who looks like them, who understands their background and what is required. And that is why I'm appealing today. I'm actually working with the Specialist Nurses Organ Donation in Greater Manchester. We're setting up a forum to find out what the barriers are. And I have also said I'm willing to support them through the process, as well as the nurses. I will be there beside them when they're going through the training. But if you can, just reach out, let Amanda know, and contact me, and I will set up a forum where we can work together, getting the specialist nurses team involved in that process. We really, really do need Black and Asian nurses in the specialist nurses team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda, can I just butt in on what I said before about people being able to stipulate who the organs go to? I've done a bit of digging because I have been out of the thing for a little while. And yes, Dr. Chimera was right. You can stipulate for live donation, but for deceased donation, you can stipulate, for example, if you're a family member, but you must also give another organ to another person. And going back onto like saying you don't want it to go to an alcoholic, etc. People are regularly in liver failure clinics assessed, and some aren't put onto the waiting list if they've been drinking. They do spot tests at clinics just to check whether they have been, and if they have, some clinics will take an alcoholic off the liver transplant waiting list. But I'm sorry if what I said gave anybody a misinformation. It's live donation, and I'm not 100% au fait with that. So at the time, it's probably better to ask the specialist that is probably more up to date than me. But I just wanted to rectify that mistake I'd made.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you very much. Right. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone who has really, really been helpful in bringing the awareness and the need for organ donation, and especially highlighting the point of the Black and Asian ethnic groups that need to contribute to this as well. Obviously, it's imperative, it's needed, and again, it's about saving lives, helping people to live full and flourish lives as well. So if this has been an opportunity for people to gain something, gain a better understanding, we appreciate the fact that we've had Dr. Shasimba, we've had Hilaria Asumu, we've had Emma Johnson and Sharon Hallam to present to us and bring us to a clearer pathway in and demystifying some of the sort of myths that have been going on about organ donation. So we really want to say thank you for your contribution. And I'm sure with some of the presentations, this is recorded, you're going to see some of the links that they have put in the presentation that will be on recorded, so it's there. And I think if anybody wanted to put anything in the chat, you could copy paste and drop it in the chat if you wish, or anything like that, or they can watch it. But really grateful for your contribution today, and I think it's very enlightening for us all, and even for myself. I mean, I've got connections with family members and friends who are organ recipients, and I'm sure, you know, they would benefit from this. And for myself as well, I've learned something new. Some new information has been helpful. So I just want to close as we started in prayer. So if we just bow our heads. Heavenly and gracious Father, we thank you for being with this presentation today, for watching over everything and the whole procedure and all the plans that have been put in for it to come to this point. And Lord, we're grateful for the panelists that have taken part, and those who have been listening, and those who will listen in the future, that you will stir their hearts and their minds to, in what they hear, that they will make decisions in being organ donators. We know how important it is right now in these times that we're living in. And we know that everyone deserves a second chance. And Lord, if we can provide that, let us give that opportunity where we can. So guide us now, be with each of the panelists, be with everyone who's listening and taking part. Watch us throughout the week, dear Lord, and the coming days. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.